Did you know that thousands of engines fail every single year because of simple oil change mistakes? Most drivers think an oil change is the easiest maintenance job on the planet. Drain the old oil, pour in the new oil, done. But the truth is, a few small mistakes can slowly destroy an engine over time or completely ruin it in just a few minutes. Today, you're going to see 12 dangerous oil change mistakes that mechanics constantly see in garages across America. Some of these mistakes look harmless, but they can lead to overheating, oil starvation, turbo damage, or repair bills that easily hit $4,000 to $10,000. And stick around until the end, because mistake number 1 is by far the most common and also one of the most expensive. Let's get started. Number 12. Changing the oil with the engine completely cold. A lot of people do oil changes first thing in the morning after the car has been sitting overnight. Sounds fine, right? Not exactly. When oil is cold, it becomes thicker and moves much slower through the engine. That means sludge, carbon buildup, and tiny metal particles stay stuck inside instead of draining out properly. So even after the oil change, a surprising amount of contamination stays behind circulating through the engine. The better option is warming the engine slightly before draining the oil. Just let the car idle for a few minutes or take a short drive. Warm oil flows faster, carries out more contaminants, and drains much more completely. But don't drain it immediately after a long highway run because scorching hot oil can cause serious burns. A slightly warm engine equals a much cleaner oil change. Number 11. Leaving the old oil filter gasket stuck to the engine. This tiny mistake has destroyed countless engines. Sometimes when removing the old oil filter, the rubber gasket sticks to the engine block without the driver noticing. Then the new filter gets installed on top of the old gasket, creating a double seal. At first everything looks normal. But once the engine starts, oil pressure forces oil out around the filter and the engine can lose lubrication incredibly fast. Within minutes, you can end up with overheating, damaged bearings, or even a seized engine. That's why every time you remove an oil filter, always check that the old gasket came off with it. One small rubber ring can mean the difference between a healthy engine and a catastrophic repair bill. Number 10. Reusing the drain plug washer. This is extremely common at quick lube shops and DIY garages. The drain plug washer is designed to compress and create a perfect seal. But after one use, it loses part of its sealing ability. Reusing it again and again eventually creates tiny leaks. At first it's just a few drops of oil. But over time, the oil level slowly drops without the driver realizing it. And many people try solving the problem by tightening the drain plug harder, which creates an even bigger problem by damaging the oil pan threads. A new crush washer costs almost nothing, but ignoring it can eventually lead to expensive leaks and major engine damage. Number 9. Overfilling the engine oil. A lot of people think adding extra oil gives extra protection. Actually, too much oil can be just as dangerous as too little. When the oil level gets too high, the crankshaft starts whipping through the oil at high speed. That turns the oil into foam filled with air bubbles. And foamy oil cannot lubricate properly. The oil pump starts circulating air mixed with oil pressure becomes unstable, and internal engine parts begin wearing much faster. Too much oil also increases crankcase pressure, which can damage seals, create leaks, and even harm the catalytic converter. Always check the dipstick carefully and never fill above the maximum line. Number 8. Over-tightening the drain plug. This is one of the most common disasters in garages. Some people tighten the drain plug like they're installing lug nuts on a semi-truck. But modern oil pans, especially aluminum ones, are surprisingly easy to damage. Too much force can strip the threads or even crack the oil pan completely. And once that happens, the repair bill can get ugly very quickly. The correct solution is simple. Use the proper torque specification and tighten the plug only until it's secure. If you're using a torque wrench and it clicks, stop tightening. That extra, just to be safe turn is often what destroys the oil pan. Number 7. Over-tightening the oil filter. Another classic mistake. People assume tighter means safer, but crushing the oil filter gasket can actually create leaks instead of preventing them. Then comes another problem. The next time you try removing the filter, it's practically welded onto the engine. What should have been a 30-second removal turns into a wrestling match under the car. The proper method is simple. Tighten the filter by hand until the gasket touches the engine. Then go about 3/4 of a turn more. That's all it needs. No giant tools. No superhero strength. Number 6. Not checking the oil level after the oil change. A lot of people finish the oil change, check the dipstick once, and assume everything is perfect. But after starting the engine, oil fills the filter and circulates through the engine. That changes the oil level. The proper process is this. Start the engine and let it idle for a few minutes. Then shut it off and wait around 5 to 10 minutes before checking the dipstick again. Many drivers discover the level dropped lower than expected after the oil fully circulates. If the oil stays below the proper level, the engine may operate with reduced lubrication from the very beginning. That's why the final dipstick check is extremely important. Number 5. Installing the oil filter dry. This small detail prevents a lot of leaks. When the rubber gasket on the new oil filter is completely dry, it can twist or bind during installation. That sometimes creates tiny sealing imperfections that slowly leak oil over time. The fix takes literally 5 seconds. Before installing the filter, put a little fresh oil on your fingertip and lightly coat the rubber gasket. That helps the seal seat properly and also makes the filter easier to remove later. Tiny step. Big difference. Number 4. Changing the oil but not changing the filter. This makes absolutely no sense, yet people still do it. The old oil filter is already full of sludge, dirt, metal particles, and contamination from the previous oil cycle. So if you pour fresh oil into the engine while leaving the dirty filter installed, the new oil immediately becomes contaminated again. It's basically like pouring clean water into a dirty bucket. The oil filter is one of the engine's most important protective components. Trying to save a few dollars by skipping it can eventually lead to thousands in repairs. Always replace the oil filter during every oil change. Number 3. Driving with the oil level below minimum. This one destroys engines every single day. Many drivers believe everything is fine as long as the oil warning light isn't on. But by the time that warning light appears, damage may already be happening. Modern engines have extremely tight tolerances. Even slightly low oil levels can allow tiny air bubbles into the lubrication system. That creates microscopic lubrication failures inside the engine. Over time, rod bearings wear faster, camshafts lose protection, timing chains become noisy, and turbochargers suffer massive stress. Turbochargers are especially vulnerable because they spin at unbelievably high speeds and rely heavily on clean, pressurized oil. That's why checking the oil regularly is critical, especially on turbocharged or high-mileage vehicles. Number 2. Using cheap low-quality oil filters. This mistake quietly destroys engines over time. Cheap oil filters may look identical on the outside, but internally they often use weak filter media, poor seals, and low-quality bypass valves. Some clog too quickly. Others barely filter the oil at all. That allows contaminants and metal particles to keep circulating through the engine non-stop. And because the damage happens slowly, most drivers never notice until expensive problems finally appear. Always use a trusted filter brand designed specifically for your engine. Saving a few dollars on a cheap filter can eventually cost thousands. And now, the number 1 mistake. Mixing different types of engine oil. This is incredibly common. A driver notices the oil level is low and pours in whatever oil happens to be available in the garage. But modern engine oils are highly engineered chemical formulas. Different oils contain different detergents, additives, friction modifiers, and stabilizers. When you mix incompatible oils, those additives can interfere with each other and reduce the oil's ability to protect the engine. The damage usually happens gradually. Sludge buildup increases. Piston rings stick. Hydraulic lifters become noisy. Turbochargers suffer extra heat stress. And the scary part is that the symptoms often stay subtle until major engine damage finally appears. That's why you should always use the exact oil viscosity and specification recommended in your owner's manual. And whenever possible, stick with the same oil brand and product line consistently. Because in the long run, mixing random oils can become a very expensive mistake. And honestly, most engine failures don't happen because drivers hate their cars. They happen because small maintenance mistakes slowly add up over time until one day something finally breaks. A careful oil change may only take a few extra minutes, but those extra minutes can literally add years to your engine's life.